You are your own executioner, not metaphorically, not poetically, literally. Every single day you wake up, look in the mirror, and make a series of calculated decisions designed to slowly strangle the life out of your potential. And the most terrifying part? You've convinced yourself you're the victim. Today, we're going to strip away every comfortable lie you tell yourself about why your life isn't working. We're going to examine that you're not just failing, you're actively addicted to your own destruction. And we're going to use the cold, surgical insights of Niccolo Machiavelli to dissect exactly why you choose suffering over success, chaos over clarity, and self-sabotage over self-actualization. Because here's what Machiavelli understood about human nature: that you refuse to acknowledge. Men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand, for everyone can see and few can feel. You see your problems, you analyze them, you discuss them endlessly with friends, therapists, and strangers on the internet. But you refuse to feel the uncomfortable truth that you are the architect of your own prison. So let me ask you something, and I want you to really think about your answer. If someone followed you around for a week and recorded every choice you made, every website you visited, every conversation you had, every moment you chose comfort over growth, would they conclude you're trying to build something beautiful, or would they see someone systematically destroying their own life? The first sign you're addicted to self-destruction is that you've built an entire philosophical framework around why excellence is impossible, unnecessary, or somehow morally suspect. You've become a priest of your own limitations, preaching the gospel of good enough, while secretly burning with resentment at those who refuse to bow to mediocrity's throne. Machiavelli wrote, "Everyone sees what you appear to be, few experience what you really are." But you've mastered the opposite trick. You've convinced everyone, including yourself, that your mediocrity is actually wisdom, that your fear is actually prudence, that your surrender is actually enlightenment. Listen to yourself. Talk about your dreams. Notice how every sentence contains an escape clause, a back door, a reason why it probably won't work. I'd love to start that business, but the market is saturated. I'd love to get in shape, but I don't have time. I'd love to write that book, but nobody reads anymore. You know what those buts really are? They're the bars of your self-constructed prison, each one carefully crafted, perfectly justified, and absolutely designed to keep you exactly where you are. And here's the psychological mechanism at work. You've discovered that justifying failure feels almost as good as achieving success, but requires none of the risk. It's a drug. When you explain to someone why you can't pursue your goals, you get to feel noble, realistic, and wise. You get to position yourself as the mature adult in a room full of naive dreamers. But Machiavelli understood something about human nature that cuts through this comfortable delusion, since love and fear can hardly exist together. If we must choose between them, it is far safer to be feared than loved. You've chosen to love your excuses more than you fear your regrets. And that choice is killing you, one justified decision at a time. So here's your first mirror. Take out your phone right now. Go through your social media posts, your text messages, your conversations from the past month. Count how many times you talked about what you're going to do versus how many times you explained why you can't do something. Your addiction to self-destruction has its own congregation, and you're both the preacher and the choir. The second sign is more insidious because it masquerades as productivity. You've become a master of sophisticated procrastination, art of staying busy while systematically avoiding anything that might actually change your circumstances. You research instead of execute. You plan instead of act. You optimize systems that don't exist yet. You spend hours perfecting your morning routine, organizing your digital files, reading about productivity techniques, and creating elaborate goal-setting frameworks that you'll never actually follow. This isn't laziness. Lazy people at least have the honesty to admit they're not doing anything. You've created something far more dangerous, the illusion of progress without the reality of change. Machiavelli observed, "The promise given was a necessity of the past. The word broken is a necessity of the present." You make promises to yourself constantly. Tomorrow I'll start the diet. Next Monday I'll begin the workout routine. After this project I'll focus on my real goals. But when the future becomes the present, you discover new necessities, new reasons to delay, new sophisticated forms of procrastination. Here's what's really happening psychologically. You've discovered that the fantasy of future action provides almost all the emotional satisfaction of actual action, but with none of the risk of failure. Planning feels like progress. Research feels like movement. Optimization feels like achievement. But it's not. It's self-destruction wearing the mask of self-improvement. You know what the difference is between someone who transforms their life and someone who spends years working on themselves without any real change? The transformer acts before they feel ready. The self-destroyer perfects their readiness until the opportunity passes. Think about it. How many books have you read about success without implementing a single strategy? How many courses have you bought without completing? How many perfect plans have you created without executing? Your sophisticated procrastination isn't protecting you from failure, it's guaranteeing it. Because while you're busy optimizing for conditions that will never exist, life is happening. Opportunities are passing, time is moving, and you're standing still, convincing yourself that preparation is the same as participation. Machiavelli said, "He who neglects what is done for what ought to be done sooner affects his ruin than his preservation." You've become an expert at what ought to be done, but you're neglecting what needs to be done right now, in this moment, with the imperfect conditions and incomplete information that reality always provides. The third sign reveals something even darker about human psychology. You've developed an intimate relationship with your problems. They're not obstacles to overcome, they're old friends you refuse to abandon. This is where Machiavelli's understanding of human nature becomes surgical in its precision. He wrote, "Men are so simple and so much inclined to obey immediate needs that a deceiver will never lack victims willing to be deceived." But he never anticipated that people would become so sophisticated at deceiving themselves. You've learned to love your problems because they provide something that solutions can't. Certainty. Your depression is predictable. Your anxiety follows familiar patterns. Your relationship drama has comfortable rhythms. Your financial struggles come with well-rehearsed explanations and widely accepted sympathy. But success, growth, actual change, that's terrifying because it's unknown. It requires you to become someone you've never been, to navigate situations you've never faced, to take responsibility for outcomes you can't control. So you choose the comfortable problem over the uncomfortable solution, again and again and again, until the choice becomes unconscious, automatic, addictive. Let me give you some examples. And I want you to notice which ones make you squirm. You complain about being lonely, but you turn down invitations because social situations feel overwhelming. You've chosen the comfortable problem of isolation over the uncomfortable solution of human connection. You hate your job, but you won't update your resume because job hunting feels humiliating. You've chosen the comfortable problem of professional stagnation over the uncomfortable solution of career change. You're frustrated with your health, but you won't start exercising because gyms feel intimidating. You've chosen the comfortable problem of poor fitness over the uncomfortable solution of physical discipline. Here's the psychological mechanism. Every problem you've lived with for more than a year has become part of your identity. It's not something you have, it's something you are. And identity change is the most terrifying thing a human can face because it requires admitting that who you've been wasn't working. Machiavelli understood this when he wrote, "Since the majority of men are neither wholly good nor wholly bad, but partake of both good and evil, They cannot sustain roles that are entirely good or entirely evil, but succeed best in roles that partake of both. You've succeeded at being part victim, part hero of your own story. But transformation requires abandoning that comfortable duality for something more challenging, complete responsibility. So here's your third. Mirror. What problem have you been complaining about for more than 6 months without taking decisive action? What comfortable suffering have you chosen over uncomfortable growth? Because until you're willing to be more afraid of staying the same than you are of changing, you'll keep choosing familiar misery over unfamiliar possibility. And that choice is slowly killing everything beautiful you could become. The fourth sign is perhaps the most sophisticated form of self-destruction because it feels so much like success. You've become addicted to the drama of almost getting that promotion, almost starting that relationship, almost launching that business, almost transforming your life. You live in the perpetual state of being on the verge of a breakthrough that never quite arrives. This isn't about bad luck or poor timing. This is about unconscious sabotage masked as unfortunate circumstances. Because here's what you've discovered: the drama of almost provides all the excitement of success stories with none of the responsibility of actual success. Machiavelli wrote, "Everyone who wins has been a good prophet, and everyone who loses is a bad prophet." But you found a third category, the perpetual prophet, who makes predictions that almost come true, maintains hope that keeps you engaged, but never quite delivers the goods. Think about your last 5 big opportunities: the job interview where you were the second choice, the relationship that seemed perfect until it suddenly wasn't, the business idea that was going to work until that one crucial element fell through, the fitness goal you almost reached before life got in the way. Notice a pattern? Here's what's really happening. At some unconscious level, you're sabotaging your own success because success would require you to maintain it. Success has ongoing responsibilities. Success means people expect things from you. Success means you can't play the underdog anymore. The drama of almost lets you feel like a winner while maintaining the psychological benefits of being a victim. You get to tell exciting stories about your near misses. You get sympathy for your bad luck. You get to keep the romantic narrative of the struggling artist, the overlooked genius, the diamond in the rough. But success? Success is boring. Success means showing up consistently even when you don't feel like it. Success means making the same good choices over and over. Success means trading the excitement of potential for the responsibility of actual achievement. Machiavelli observed, "The vulgar crowd follows appearances, and the world consists chiefly of the vulgar." You've learned to create the appearance of someone on the verge of success without ever having to deal with success itself. Let me ask you something uncomfortable. How many times have you been 90% of the way to a goal and then found a reason to stop? How many times have you created a crisis right before a breakthrough? How many times have you pulled defeat from the jaws of victory? Because if the pattern repeats more than twice, you're not unlucky, you're addicted. Addicted to the drama of almost, addicted to the story of the noble failure, addicted to potential energy instead of kinetic achievement. The tragedy isn't that you're failing. The tragedy is that you're failing on purpose, and you've become so sophisticated at it that you don't even realize you're doing it. The fifth sign reveals something profound about how you've learned to deceive yourself. You've become masterful at creating the illusion of forward movement while systematically avoiding any action that might produce actual results. You're always busy, always learning, always working on yourself, but somehow never actually changing. You mistake motion for progress and noise for signal until your entire life becomes a performance of productivity without any meaningful output. Machiavelli understood this when he wrote, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are." But you've taken this insight and weaponized it against yourself. You've become an expert at appearing to Be someone who's making progress while ensuring that you never actually experience the discomfort of real change. Here's how it works. You attend workshops, but don't implement the strategies. You read self-help books, but don't complete the exercises. You join communities focused on growth, but spend your time discussing problems rather than solving them. You consume endless content about transformation while carefully avoiding any action that might actually transform you. This isn't ignorance, this is sophisticated avoidance. Because real progress is messy, uncomfortable, and often invisible to others. Real progress means spending months or years doing unsexy work that nobody notices. Real progress means choosing effectiveness over appearance, results over recognition, substance over story. But you've discovered something more immediately gratifying: the performance of progress. Posting about your goals on social media, talking about your plans at dinner parties, buying the equipment, downloading the apps, setting up the systems. These activities provide all the social validation of progress without requiring you to actually change anything fundamental about your life. They let you feel productive while remaining essentially static. Machiavelli observed, "Since love and fear can hardly exist together, if we must choose between them, it is far safer to be feared than loved." You've chosen to love the feeling of being in motion more than you fear the reality of staying in the same place. So here's your mirror. What have you been working on for more than a year without measurable progress? What area of your life looks busy from the outside but shows no actual improvement? When you examine the results, because here's the uncomfortable truth: if you can't point to specific, measurable changes in your circumstances over the past 12 months, all your motion has been an elaborate form of standing still. All your learning has been sophisticated procrastination. All your self-development has been self-deception. The most insidious part is that this pattern feels virtuous. You get to feel like someone who's committed to growth, someone who's trying, someone who cares about becoming better. But virtue without results isn't virtue, it's vanity. Real progress is often invisible to others and uncomfortable for you. Real progress means saying no to activities that feel productive but don't produce results. Real progress means choosing boring consistency over exciting starts. If your life looks the same as it did a year ago, despite all your motion and noise, you're not growing, you're performing growth. And that performance is slowly killing your ability to create actual change.